enjoyed the catwalk show. It's fantastic, wasn't it? My name's Cathy O'Driscoll. I'm co-founder and director of a sustainable and ethical sourcing advisory consultancy with Simon Platts, the ex-ESG director of ASOS. And we have a stand over there if you want to catch us later at M40. Anyway, we're here today with two incredibly interesting women who are really in a situation where we've got a turnkey moment in creating regenerative agriculture at scale. So I'd like to introduce Alana O'Flynn, who's from Pentland. She is the industrial and innovation designer who has worked globally with Pentland and other brands, including Adidas and Puma. And we have wonderful Nelly. She's a co-founder and COO of Ponder, which is a fantastic business. Definitely Google it. Inventor of biomaterials company developing novel textiles and truly regenerative fibres. Whilst we're often focused on circularity in taking waste products and then developing it into new yarns, this is taking, she'll explain it in detail more because she's the inventor, actually going back to agriculture where there's a lot of waste and reusing it for yarns. So Nelly and Alana, have a few moments to tell everybody about what you do and BioPuff.
Yeah. Should I go first?
Do you want to start first?
Take the lead.
I'm a co-founder and COO at Ponda. I'm also joined today by Julian Sattler, CEO at Ponda. We have a next-gen materials company based in Bristol, UK, and we're on a mission to connect the restoration of wetlands to the creation of healthier textiles for the fashion industry. And so what that means is that we're working with farmers across the UK and also Europe to restore damaged wetlands. And then we've developed a fiber processing technology to take native crops that are grown there and turn it into materials for the fashion industry. And our first product, BioPuff, is a bio-based insulation and acts as a vegan alternative to goose down or synthetic fillers that can go into nice puffy garments.
Amazing. I'm Alana. I'm an industrial design engineer and I'm currently working for Pentland Brands, which I hadn't heard of before I joined, but they own lots of amazing brands such as Berghaus, Speedo, LS, Endura, Canterbury, and lots more. So I work in the Central Innovation Research and Development team, so it's a really amazing team of kind of cross-functional individuals, and we all have our own specialisms. So I'm the design engineer, we have materials specialists, we have research lab, pattern engineers, and we all work collaboratively to try future-proof Pentland's brands to make them more sustainable and higher performing.
Great. And we were talking earlier, and I've probably worked with Pentland Brands for 3 decades. It was years ago the biggest global footwear manufacturer, there had ever been, and it's still privately owned. So it does invest, it reinvests, it treats its people well, and it reinvests in innovation, which is something I think lots of big companies are missing at the moment. So fashion has the potential to cut environmental impact and shape the industry by ditching old habits and working with regenerative fibres. But how realistic is this? I've seen over the years lots of ideas like fish leather and pineapple yarn and things like that, but getting it to scale, how realistic is this? What challenges have you found in getting it to scale and going from an idea, from a concept to capsule to catwalk to actually commercial? And that's the bit over the last decade we've been missing. So how have you managed to scale it together?
Well, I can speak from kind of maybe the startup side, and then Alana can speak from the brand side. But for us, there's tons of amazing next-gen materials out there, and despite what product it is and what fiber it is, you kind of typically face the similar challenges across the board of first having space to be able to actually create that material, but then actually get your foot in the door so you have time to develop it and scale it, because we're competing with products that have been on the market for decades, for centuries, and these are kind of fibers that have entire industries and supply chains around them. So we're starting everything from scratch. So I'd say it's definitely possible, but it needs to happen with good collaboration, and that's why I think the work that we do with Pentland has been really informative of how we need to work with brands across the board to be able to get things over the line. In terms of barriers, I'd say the main barrier we've seen is that when you first get a material out there, it's something that people are not used to, and test standards out there are designed for materials that and fibers that we're used to using. So in our case, we're constantly being compared against goose down feathers or synthetic polyester filling. And our material is a completely new material, and it's going to be used in similar applications, but it also requires kind of a new thinking around it. And so a way to address that, I think, and what we've done together, and we can speak more about it, is getting various departments on board. So not only having kind of technical experts in the conversation, but also having design early on, having sustainability early on, having higher level buy-in, and just discussing the product as a whole. How are we going to educate consumers about this, about new washing methods, or ways we're going to kind of, start using these new materials. So I think it's definitely possible to get new materials out there. It just takes time, and you need brands to trust you and work with you.
Yeah, I think it's specifically for the companies I've worked which are like sportswear or like high performing functional things, like things that are going to the Olympics or like up to the top of a mountain. There's an extra level of kind of rigor that we end up putting through the materials we're looking at, but that definitely doesn't stop us. Like, there's a huge amount of appetite within Pentland, and we work with a lot of amazing startups, and I think what we understand and realize early on is it's never going to be one size fits all. Like the way we work with Ponda is totally different to any other relationship, and it's also understanding material startups, you meet them at certain points. Sometimes you kind of hold the hand from the beginning. Sometimes it's like working with a university level. Sometimes it's Ponda, where it's a hell of a lot easier and closer to like getting it into line. But I think what's nice and what's amazing with working with people like Ponda is the honesty, because we have, like Nelly mentioned, really intense testing regulations, but the sooner they let us know where they're at, the easier it is for us to like fit what we can, and we do look at it and say, yes, this was made for polyester, for down, so we can like look at it differently, because there's no point trying to retrofit a completely different material into like old and existing standards. So yeah, we work quite carefully on that.
Yeah, I'm just going to go off my questions completely, because you've just like a light bulb moment's come on, because when you came up with this idea, did you have several ideas and then have to test them? Or is this like you found what you've created is phenomenal when I researched it, because taking this plant material from the wetlands is actually improving the wetlands and helping sort of carbon absorption as well, which is phenomenal. But do you have to like, invent 9 things and one of them will stick? Do you just have to find the one that works and then focus on that? And how much? The testing must have been extraordinary to get it into technical, all of the stretching and the dye retention and rubs and all that, to get it up to the standards of what we're used to. What challenges did you have from the lab and from creating it to actually test it for it? Sorry, I've gone off.
No, that's
go for it.
But that must have been phenomenal. It must have taken ages. It must have taken phenomenal testing and research to do that. What challenges did you have?
Well, I mean, ahead of coming up with the product, like we had a really simple question, which was, can we create supply chains that are inherently healing or doing better than doing worse? So that's what led us to looking at wetlands and these incredible ecosystems that have been unfortunately drained over centuries and contribute to a lot of carbon emissions, twice the amount of the entire carbon emissions of the fashion industry. So what we wanted to do was, we knew the fashion industry needed some help and needs to do better, and we knew that we were using so few fibers out there, natural fibers, and there's better ways that we can start building supply chains that are inherently healing. So we kind of wanted to connect these two worlds together. So when we looked at these spaces, we looked at various crops and we looked at their characterizations and what kind of properties they had, and we kind of let the fibers lead us. And in the case of the crop that we work with, Typha latifolia, the natural fiber cluster structures enable it to have these air pockets which make it very warm, and it was similar to feathers in a way. And so that's what led our development. And then when we talk about testing, I mean, it really started off basic. We started this back in 2020 in our graduate program at Imperial College and Royal College of Art, and it was just us testing in our own kind of kitchens, and then eventually in the university labs, and finding people to work with. And then and then tackling it from both a product and technical perspective. And we have a fantastic kind of product team right now at Ponda that do rapid prototyping and testing, and you don't need the craziest kind of facilities to do this when you're starting. You got to just like be a materials person, and we're lucky we have people like that. So we did a lot of testing, and then of course working with Pentland, then you guys have your own testing, which has been amazing, and we kind of entered the conversation as honest as possible. We said, these are the things we know, these are the things we don't know, this is what we think it can do, and this is realistically what it can't do. Yeah. So like, where do you see it fit?
Yeah, and I think that was what was really interesting, is it is a time-consuming process, but I think what we realized is we got a brief from Berghaus saying, what do we think the future of warmth will look like in our industry, to the innovation team, and we kind of mapped out short and long term, and Ponda we were like, oh, that's perfect, they've looked at it in a really similar way, it's regenerative, and that's the difference. Like, we look at sustainable materials, but then regenerative to me feels like a really interesting evolution in that space. So we're willing to invest the time to almost leapfrog the industry and go for that like further most impressive, impactful thing. And I think we have amazing inside our R&D team. We have a lab up in Newcastle where we test stuff, and we build new testing rigs. So like as a team, we'll 3D print test rigs for like specialized new things. So it doesn't mean we just use whatever existing testing. We'll like do research, develop rigs. We do a lot of wear testing, so we have a community of people that are in the outdoors that love to interact with Berghaus, and we send them product and they give us really honest feedback. So it's not just technical, it's also about feel and how people react and like enjoy the story and what are they willing to like feel and not feel about it. So yeah, it's quite an extensive process, but it's definitely worth it.
And building on that, how important is CEO and exec buy-in from the top, and what challenges did you have within Pentland in sort of selling internally and creating belief within such a huge company?
I think it's really interesting because lucky for us, like innovation is like a real central pillar of innovation of Pentland's kind of strategy. So our CEO and exec are really passionate about things like this. They get really excited. They're like, can you please come and talk to me about this? And you're like, yes. I think the thing that you have to do is like, almost like we need to get all our technical ducks in a row to like manage the excitement. So I think that is where we are kind of careful, and what we did with you guys really nicely is like introduce the right people at the right time. So it wasn't, let's all sit in a room and you sit with our positive business, our CEO, our designer, dev. It's like, let's talk to them each individually, let's figure out what each of them need and how we can like set up a really good, clear use case. So when we get to the point which we're getting closer to now of being able to press send, we're kind of ready and clear. But yeah, we have loads of passion and energy from our CEO, so we're fine.
Oh, that's good. That's such a refresh, really. And this, you kind of half answered this, but as a huge corporation like Pentland, how important is startup collaboration? I imagine you've got lots of similar projects going on which you can't possibly talk about. You'd have to shoot me. But how has this differed from other brands that you've worked with earlier on in your career?
I think what Pentland, even though we own really big brands, we're a relatively lean organization. Like there's not that many people for the amount of product and like kind of hype that we have around them. So I think we're really good at realizing what we can do internally, and we do develop our own materials like with our specialists, but also when there's startups that are kind of much further along and doing it in a really interesting way, we're really excited to collaborate with them because we have the knowledge of like they're doing that better than we can do it, and we want their kind of knowledge and skills, and like we get so much energy from people like Ponda coming in and learning from them. So I think that's how we treat that relationship, is it is very much like a give and take. Like we really try to support them as much as we can, but our main thing is how can we accelerate, and the way to accelerate is like more hands are better than one and different expertise and stuff. So yeah.
Brilliant. Next question is about innovation and ownership, and I think it's a challenge for lots of companies tackling sustainable issues and circularity, which is there's new fibres, there's new technologies, and it can be seen as a competitive advantage. However, other tech people tend to open source for software development, etc., for new ideas and innovation. Which will drive more innovation? Patenting versus IP versus open sourcing. It's a real commercial challenge. So what are your thoughts on using it, protecting it, patenting it as a competitive advantage, and then revealing it to everybody else? It's a hard commercial decision. What's your experience of that?
Yeah, it's a tricky question. I think, it depends. It really depends. But I mean, IP and patent development is something you require as a next-gen material. You have investors, you have various stakeholders kind of holding you to it as well. But it's also important so that you can really differentiate yourself and showcase kind of what it is you're doing that is innovative. That being said, I think there are various ways based on what it is you're developing. So there could be like actual technology you're developing, but there could also be supply chain know-how or a network. So there's no kind of one solution that fits all. I think you have to kind of approach it case by case. Yep. When it comes to working with brands and working with partners, supply chain partners, when we started, I guess like another kind of way to think about it is things like exclusivity and ways of like, do we just work together or do we have it open source? And when we started, we were really against exclusivity because we thought, this is a solution that we want everyone to use, and it doesn't make sense for us to kind of hold it back from people. And we still believe that we're building it we want all brands to be able to use this, not only certain brands or designers and whatever it may be. But I think there's other ways that you can also form kind of partnerships and joint development partnerships or joint venture partnerships, depending on the level of kind of involvement you have. And from a startup perspective, often if you don't have that commitment as well from a brand, you might do a lot of work on something and then they're suddenly like, nope, we're moving forward. And so there is this safeguarding of innovation as well. So I really think it's a case-by-case situation. I wouldn't say no to anything. It's about understanding when can you keep it open so that more people can use this, so that we can expand this type of development, whether it's a small company or a large company working with it, and how can we get healthy competition out in the market as well to be able to grow and expand that industry. And when is it important to kind of protect what you have so that people don't go and do it in a way that isn't responsible, because so much of what we're doing is about also the integrity of the data, of the agriculture, all of the type of steps that we take throughout the supply chain to ensure that we're doing things the right way. So it's a real combination, I think.
It's a real challenge for you. And how do you approach this from Pentland's point of view?
I think it's quite a different perspective, but for us and for Berghaus, our main kind of focus over the last few years and coming years is female-first innovation. So I think for us, we're developing like multiple technologies, collaborations, products, all with the aim of helping women live more active lives and be comfortable in its female-first designed rather than male-first. Wow. But when we go into the patent law of it, sometimes it's quite carefully patented, these things, but they're patented not in a way that necessarily works for women, but it avoids our kind of method that we might use to make it work for women. So that's where it gets really complicated, like from a designer, because there's a point of difference that will positively impact people's lives, but you're kind of stuck in this legal piece. But I know there's a reason for it. I had my own startup a couple of years back, and what I found frustrating was it really slowed the process down. Like I had to protect myself in order to do the thing, and I was like, I just want to do the thing. Can I just share the thing, please? Can we all
Tell
do
everybody.
it? So yeah, it's an interesting thing to manage. Yeah,
and I think that's the challenge. I mean, 7 or 8 years ago, I was doing training things, and it was to say all these different fibres, and I thought, well, how are they actually going to scale up? And that's why this collaboration is absolutely key, and it's fascinating. Also, very fascinating what you said about female industries and things. I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's been a really amazing journey. We work with a lot of kind of anatomists, hormonal people. We have like an expert panel of people helping us design in a really holistic way things for women. Like we talk about all the awkward things. And that's been amazing as a designer to get to do that. And like from like mechanical, emotional, hormonal, physical, it's like a group of products that are really like carefully and considerately made for women.
Right, watch this space. I can't wait to see the next innovations. So true circularity will need to reuse the end-of-life textiles. Which fibres do you feel, in all the complexity of the different fibres we have, still need to find solutions?
I mean, there's so many fibers that I think we still need solutions for. I mean, synthetics being one of them in insulation, but also across the board, biodegradable fibers in general, again, across the board. There's a lot of leathers and animal byproducts, which there are a lot of development right now in that space, but then supporting those developments to be able to scale. So yeah, there's tons, and then I'm sure you have.
For us, the main thing is performance linked, because we're making things like the Speedo fast skin suit, where the thing is like it needs to like make these like marginal gains for people, and the main material that will be in that is like elastin and lycra, and that is a tricky material. So I think that and DWR, so waterproofing, so these like highly technical materials, they're kind of like last on the pecking order for getting this kind of more regenerative, kind of sustainable view on, because the hierarchy of needs on that one is performance. But what we're trying to figure out and do is, can we please do both? Like, can it not be one or the other? But it's really challenging when it's like those peak pieces and fibers. But there's loads of work being done, and we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges. We've been working in the recycling arena, and there's been lots of innovation and big scaling up for 100% cotton or 100% polyester. Polyester's a plastic, so it's infinitely recyclable. But stick that in with, a cotton polyester mix or lycra, and that is one of the biggest problems I think we've got. And we need lots of you scientists and intelligent lab dwellers to come up with the ideas for that, please. Talking about that development and that innovation and the collaboration with universities, etc., commercial industry innovation is often seen as a risk by investors. So the PLCs are always going to be at the mercy of the investors. Is the public sector giving enough to people like you in developing public innovation funds, and how would you like to see that improved or developed?
Yeah, I mean, for us, being in the UK has been fantastic for the type of work we're doing, because there's a real big push from the agricultural side to be able to put kind of funds towards restoring these wetlands, specifically in the UK, and building kind of industry around that. So that we've had a lot of partnerships and government grants that have supported us, and then also through Innovate UK for the other development that we do and all the kind of work that we've done. We've worked with Innovate UK quite a few times now, so that I'd say there's definitely a lot of support. There can always be more, I guess. I think it's something that we need to think about again in a holistic way. It's not just, it doesn't sit outside of kind of government or policy. Something like this is so intrinsically linked to policy and industry here in the UK and then in other regions as well. So I'd say it's really good. It's helped us a lot. I think without it, we wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't have been able to build the trust with investors and get them to kind of see that we've had the support from grants, and we've been able to achieve certain milestones with that support. So there's tons out there, and I'd say everyone should always look out for them, and it's really, really important.
And I'd add to that is actually, because we've got a couple of projects which are via Innovate UK. Some of you might have never heard of it. So basically, when the government and this is any government over the last 30 years, but the government wants to invest in something, they will raise a question, and they'll put the question out there. And they filter the money through this corporation called Innovate UK, not corporation, civic body called Innovate UK. Now, I've asked Innovate UK, why do the same people get all the money? And he says, because we have one pot for industry and 9 pots for academia. So if you are coming up, this person here, this is where it all starts. You've got an idea and you think you have got a textile innovation that's going to help the planet. Go to university, speak to them, connect to Innovate UK. They've got a whole business network department, but they tend to keep themselves to themselves. You've got to knock on their door, and that you can access lots and lots of money on research and development from them. So, yeah, a little known secret, a little wallet is sat there in Westminster. So after that, I'm sure you've got lots of questions. Anyone got any questions for Nelly and Alana? Great. Amana's going to bring over a microphone for you. It's the lady on the front here. Hello.
Hi, my name's Faith. I'm a fashion startup founder as well, particularly regarding the aspects of regenerative agriculture from the cotton standpoint of things as a raw material. So my question, I guess it might be two questions. The first one is regarding Ponda, how do you see scalability beyond the current end use that you guys are specializing in? And then the second one is in regards to the idea of regenerative agriculture and initially your challenges specifically in the acceptance of the, how can I put it, just the acceptance of it from like a customer standpoint, because your customers are brands, right? And then you were talking about you know, the misconception sometimes of like maybe people are mistaking it for like plastic and stuff like that. So how are you able to, you know, put to the forefront the aspect of consumer education and yeah.
So for first question, beyond the end use of what we're doing right now with insulation, I think that what we're trying to build is the connection between these two kind of industries. So it's really around the supply chain, and our hope is that we can develop a lot of other fibers and a lot of other kind of outputs from these sources. So a lot of the development work we do internally, which is still in R&D, is looking at how can we use, for example, the remainder of the crop to build other materials for the fashion industry or potentially for other industries. So I think that's a really key part, because we're trying to compete with so many existing kind of fibers that are out there, and to be able to build that supply chain from the ground up, it's important to be able to have various outputs and be able to hit different markets, but not to lose focus, I think, in the early years, because you need to prove that the business model works in one way. But so we're thinking beyond that for sure. I think it starts with insulation, but hopefully we can branch out to other fibers and other use cases in the future. And then your second question, if I remember it correctly, around like how we differentiate ourselves and how do we communicate some of the aspects of what we do. That was a really important part of what we thought about early on, like the communications of it. Even though we're a B2B, we sell to brands, we put a lot of effort around our branding and rebranding and how we communicate everything, because we're trying to teach completely new agricultural kind of practices, but simplify it. And we're trying to teach that to the brands, but we're also trying to teach it to other stakeholders, to the end consumer. And so there's tons of work there, but I think branding it and putting our own tone of voice out there was a big part of it. And then also working with brands. So like something that we often forget is that people like Alana and other champions in the brand are doing so much work trying to sell our products and sell our story and educate their colleagues and their peers. So that practice has been really good of understanding like what are the important points here around the benefits that what we do has, and what parts do different people care about as well, and not kind of delivering everything at once. But I think the education piece for end consumers is really, really important, and it's some work that I think everyone across the supply chain needs to do. I mean, anyone from garment manufacturers to you know, mills to brands to everyone, because it's just something that we're learning how to approach these new materials. Like one of the examples that Alana gave around performance, so many garments need to be designed for that use case, and that's why people go to brands like Pentland, because they trust the integrity of that performance. It's been tested. But a lot of other consumers are just buying garments for use case that is misaligned for what that product was tested, and understanding how you can be sustainable and how we can think about the origins of a material and consider that to be the quality of the material as well, and start kind of reframing how we think about these things. It's a lot of work, but I think it's work that we're doing together, and hopefully, yeah.
I would just add the focus piece with Ponda has been really helpful, because I think I've learned, not through Pentland, but loads of places I worked, a startup comes in and the brand is like, can you do this and this and this and this? And it's like things we're not doing, but we're like, you do that. But I think they've been really good at being like, this is what we're doing. Like, this is it. Do you like it? Yes, we do love it. Okay, cool. But that's been really helpful.
Brilliant. We've got great insight there into the workings of those two completely different companies. We're just coming around to the end of our time at the moment. Sorry, can't ask any more questions, but I'm sure you can come and have a chat with us afterwards. I just want to thank Alana and Nelly, because I am been in this game for a long time, but I am really inspired by these two individuals. So thank you very much.
Thank you.